Welcome to the Critical Minds on Union Television. I am Onyinye Ezlofo, and today we're going to be discussing a topic that concerns our public interest. So recently, there's been a lot going on between the judiciary and some people in the society. There are some members of the elite class, and this also affects people who are in middle class or the lower class. Now, we don't understand why it seems there is a disparity, and this is why we're discussing this topic today. So we have with us today someone who is going to make you understand what this topic is about and why what is happening is happening. So if you have concerns, if you have questions, he is going to be answering your questions. He's no other person than Barrister Joseph, a legal practitioner and a public interest advocate. Hello, Barrister Joseph.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Our topic for today is the violation of court order. And we're going to be delving deep into this topic. So what do you think is the reason for the violation of court order?
Okay, I want to start by saying that violation of court orders are usually symptoms of a failing democracy.
Of a failing
Of a
democracy?
failing democracy. It's part of a failing democracy that court orders are disparaged or disregarded. The fact is that democracy thrives on certain fundamental pillars. And one of such pillars is respect for the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary. So when you have violations of court orders, it means that one of the critical components of a democracy is under threat. And Nigeria exemplifies this threat that we talk about, because in the last couple of years, we have seen a radical disregard for the rule of law by the government itself. And so it is not a surprise that it has become very prevalent in our society today, that even those who are outside government see what is going on in the government, that the government does not respect court orders. And so it's become like a free fall for everybody.
Everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we can also break it down a little now that we know what it means to violate court order. Now, the person who is listening needs to understand what court order is. So what's court order? Some people call it like summon or something. Okay.
Within this sphere of the judiciary, at the conclusion of a trial or at the conclusion of a hearing, when parties submit their disputes to court and the court hears from both sides, hears from the defendants and hears from the claimants, at the end of the day, the verdict of the court, the determination of the dispute by the court as an independent arbiter is called an order or a judgment. That is to say, at the end of the proceedings, who did the court adjudge as being right? What was the outcome of the resolution of the matter? Breaking it down in its most simplest steps, two children run up to their father and they report to their father that, oh, child A has spilled water on the floor. Child B says, no, it was child A that spilled water on the floor. The father says, okay, I'm going to take a look at the surrounding circumstances and find out who actually spilled the water. At the end of the whole day, the father does his assessment. He finds out that, okay, it is child B that spilled the water. So he says, child B, you are wrong. So that same way, that is how the court arrives at its own decision. The court hears the evidence on both sides. And having heard the evidence on both sides, the court will evaluate the evidence on both sides. The court puts it in what we call in law the imaginary scale. Okay? So the evidence in the mind of the judge is put in each of those scales. The scales are two, as you know. So once the first party speaks, all the oral and documentary evidence of that party is put in that imaginary scale. The court also gives the other side the opportunity to lead evidence and brings in its own evidence. documentary and oral, and the court puts it to in the imaginary mind of the court on the other side of the scale. So at the end of the day, the court looks at which side does the pendulum swing, or which side of the scale is heavier. Do you understand?
Okay, so when it's like this, or it's
Yeah,
tilting.
so when it is when the court evaluates it, does what we call in law a finding of fact, and sees that okay, the party that led evidence as party B, the scales are higher on its side, then the courts adjudges that party as the person in the right, and then that verdict is captured or encapsulated in an order or a judgment, which parties are expected to abide with and obey. It's a constitutional right that we must all respect court order. It's a right. It is not something that we can treat with levity. It is our right, that our right to be protected. It's also our own right to obey orders of the court. So when we violate orders of the court, what we are doing basically is that we are rubbishing our democracy, and we are also saying that we do not regard the most critical arm of government, in my own view, that is the judiciary, which is the body that is vested with the responsibility of settlement of disputes. And if you don't have in any society an impartial body that can settle disputes, then the society will be back to Obitian jungle, when life is brutish, nasty, short, solitary, and poor.
Yes, when life is brutish, nasty, short, solitary, and poor. Don't you think that's the situation of our country right now?
Of course, of course.
So,
I don't want to. I am one Nigerian that has chosen not to lie to myself. We have a lot of us, and with all due respect to a majority of Nigerians, as long as your kinsman is in power, you don't want to talk. As long as your brother is in authority, you don't want to talk. As long as the government policies, regardless of how it hurts the majority of the people, but you benefit from it, you don't want to talk. So we have a lot of this double standard and duplicities in our country today. But I refuse to be a Nigerian that will not be able to speak the truth, and I want to be exempted from the crowd of people who see what is wrong and say it is right and refuse to talk. So it is in line with my philosophy as a human being to always go for the truth, because the truth is universal. Nigeria is in a bad place, and we have to tell ourselves the truth. If we do not admit that Nigeria is in a bad place, then we have no reason to sit down and begin to address all the hydra-headed problems that face us.
Yeah. So if we're saying that the judiciary is to bring about conflict resolution and to make things right, that means it needs to stand alone to do it. Well, it's the judiciary really independent?
Yeah. That's a tricky question, and I'll tell you why it is tricky. And I want to be very honest. I don't want to dance around in circles about answering that question.
Okay.
The answer is that I will give is that the judiciary is not independent.
Oh.
And my reason, or what I will use to support my assertion that the judiciary is not independent, is that when you look at the appointment of the judges we have today, it has input from the governors of each state and, of course, the president. And to a very large extent, the recruitment process oftentimes is influenced by the executive arm of government. And they look at the pedigree of those to be appointed as judges, and they look at them and say, this one, if he gets there, is not going to be pliant to us. So they find ways to get them off the way and appoint judges that will be sympathetic to their cause. So the executive, to a very large extent, I speak as a concerned Nigerian, has been influencing the appointment of judges in Nigeria today. And again, you must also not lose sight of the fact that the funding for the judiciary is also tied to the executive. We have aberrations going on in the country today where the governor of a state will be buying cars from the judiciary and allocating quotas to them and all of that. So when you have a judge whose car is bought for by the governor or the president, his quotas prepared for him or her by the president or the governor, you cannot expect some level of independence in that instance. I advocate that we need a judiciary that will control his own funds and take care of his own welfare and not have to wait for the president or the president to determine that. And then the process of recruitment, if you look at what has been going on lately, we have seen the last CJN in a brazen manner. I'm talking about His Lordship, Honorable Justice Ariwola, retired. That's practically filled the judicial space with his relatives. He's on record to have been one of the most nepotistic judicial head that we have had for the judiciary. His son became a judge, his relatives holding offices and all that. Even before he left, there are some appointments that were shrouded in nepotism, and you do not expect independence in that instance. So I also want to add that the process of the recruitment is practically based on who you know, and the best and brightest are not usually the ones that that find themselves into such places. You have to be the daughter of someone, or the son of someone, the wife of someone, the girlfriend of someone. It's been so bastardized that merit has been thrown out of the window. So what we have is a pathetic, sorry state, and I refuse to glorify it. And that's why at every forum where I have the opportunity to talk about it, I say it as it is, that the judiciary is not independent. We are just pretending to be independent. It is not independent.
Oh, that's really interesting. And you talked about the allocation for the judiciary. So is it supposed that the judiciary is funded by the judiciary, or is the government supposed to fund you directly from its coffers? So how is it supposed to be, and then what's the alteration?
Well, the ideal thing would have been judicial financial autonomy.
Okay.
When we say judicial financial autonomy, what we're saying is that the judiciary should have its own budget, and it should supervise its own affairs, like in matters of where their residents, their welfare, all of those matters should not even have any input from the executive arm. We should have a situation whereby the heads of each judicial arm will come up with his own independent package on how to address judges' welfare, and not the other way around. That's what we have today, where the governors will be buying cars for judges. The governors will be determining the residencies that the judiciary officials will live. I think that when you allow the executive to play such rules, it whittles down. It has a way of eroding the confidence that people will have in the judiciary, and also the independence that judicial officers should be known for. So the bottom line is that their welfare, their remuneration has some form of, even up to the appointments, the recruitment process, there are some back-end influences from the executive that have, to a very large extent, eroded the independence of the judiciary. I don't want us to pretend about it.
Wow, that's interesting. So we're still discussing court order, right? And then we have cases where before the hearing, like you said, court order is more like when two parties have appeared in court, and then there is this evaluation from the imaginary lens of the judge, and then there is a ruling. So what about the point when these people are being invited to court, and then we have people who do not pay attention to it, and people who do not want to appear?
Well, the court has a mechanism for dealing with disobedience to a summons to appear in court.
Okay.
And that is not something that anybody would want to have come upon himself. If the court sends out a summon for you to appear, we call it in law. There are two types of summons. The first one is ducis tecum, and the other one is ad testificandum. In ducis tecum, you are subpoenaed to come to court to just tender documents. Then in subpoena ad testificandum, you are expected to come to court and then to give evidence. And if you don't come, the court will issue an order for your arrest, and you'll be arrested and brought to court. And if the court so wishes, the court can even make you go to prison for contempt. So there are grave consequences for disobeying orders of court. But what we have had in Nigeria in the last couple of years is that there has been an increasingly departure from obedience to court orders. And let us be very frank, there's no way to dress the issue or dodorize the issue. The fact is that the culprits, those who violate court orders, are the government, the officials of the government. It's not you and I, the ordinary man on the street. It is government officials. They are the ones who violate court orders, who do things with impunity. It's not the ordinary man on the street. If you fail to obey a court order as an ordinary man, pronto, the law will clamp down on you. It is those who have stupendous amounts of security details around them, those who have significant amounts of influence with the police authorities. They are the ones who have the capacity to violate court orders because they already know that nothing is going to happen. It's not the ordinary man.
That's true. So, because I was almost asking and giving instances of the cases we've had of people who didn't want to appear in court until they felt like appearing in court. So we'll be going on a short break now, and when we come back from this break, we'll continue with this discussion. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Critical Minds. We're still discussing the violation of court order. And yes, we're talking about people who violate this summon and do not want to appear in court. It's usually not the common man. But then again, what happens when this order is violated? How does it, or how does the court receive it? Because there are times or there are cases where this person has been summoned over and again, and it is all over media, it's in print media, traditional mainstream media, and this person is still not going to the court.
Okay, like I said before, the court has inbuilt mechanism for dealing with violation of its orders. And one of such is the concept of contempt.
Okay.
Contempt of court is a very severe consequence for disobeying an order of court. So the court can cite that party for contempt, and is usually carries a prison sentence ranging from between 3 to 6 months to 12 months. It can be as high as that until the person purges himself or herself of the disobedience. So this mechanism are there, but the fundamental problem which I want us to interrogate is that why is it that, in spite of the fact that these laws are there that deal with the issue of disobedience to court orders, there are no consequences?
And that's really what I wanted to know, right? Because if you disrespect me, and then I know I am supposed to punish you, do I have something that is supposed to back me? So if you're saying that the concept of contempt says this person can be imprisoned, why are these people still working freely? Why are they going for occasions? Why do you see them saying, I cannot come here, I am not doing this? And they are very audacious.
Thank you. That's a very good point that you have highlighted. It brings me back to what I said earlier on. Who are the people violating orders of court? It's not you and I in the studio. It is the big men, the novel rich, the who is who, as they call themselves, the VIPs, those who are in government, who having been in government for a number of years, have amassed stupendous amount of wealth and can muster 20 senior advocates. They can muster countless numbers of senior advocates to go before the courts and put a lot of arguments before the court why the court order should not be enforced. It is not an ordinary man like you and I that can afford those number of senior advocates to defend them. Just recently, I read in the papers that a concerned Nigerian went to court to say that David Umahi, the current Minister for Works, should disclose the details of his coastal railway line,
Yes.
which is something that he should, because he's not running his private affairs. It is the Nigerian people affairs that he's running. It is only in Nigeria that a government official will be so recalcitrant to release information
Public
about
information.
Yes, it's only in Nigeria that you have things like that. Now, guess what the minister did? Rather than comply with providing the information, the man went to court, and the court ordered that he should provide the information under the Freedom of Information Act. Provide the information. You know what he did? He hired 6 senior advocates, 6, to truncate the court from going ahead with its orders that he should provide details of the project that he is purportedly going to execute on behalf of the public.
So is there a provision for members of the judiciary to fight against the orders of the court?
The problem with the judiciary is that the judges are to be seen, but they cannot be heard. As we are seated here in the studio, a judge cannot come before the studio and begin to grant interview. They are isolated completely, cocooned from the rest of society, so as to guarantee their impartiality and their non-interference with every member of society or relations with society. So they cannot do much. It is the person who has gone to court and has a judgment in his or her favor that can go back to the court to go and report. And then the court can activate its discipline mechanism. Like I said, we have discipline mechanism inbuilt into the court that allows the court to direct the commissioner of police or the IGP or the law enforcement agents to apprehend a person who refuses to obey a court order.
Okay.
So that can be activated. But as usual, the judges are always very neutral. They are in the middle. They are neither for the claimant nor for the defendant. But when it is brought to their attention that there is an order of court that is being violated, then the judges can activate the power to discipline the violator.
Okay. So I was actually asking,
Yes.
like the case of Umahi, who had to hire people to defend him.
Senior advocate, 6.
These senior advocates are supposed to appear in court to say he shouldn't present what he's been demanded of. So, and they know what the court ruling is regarding it. So are you coming to say, I am part of this system, but at this time, I am against what you're saying now, considering my capacity? Or is it just because of the person in question?
I at the risk of saying that I have answered it, I will still repeat again. The people who do these things, who treat court orders with levity, are the big men, the
Yes,
VIPs,
they are.
those in society. So what they usually do is they have a war chest, a financial war chest. You know, Nigeria, and I make both to say, and I have no apologies. Nigeria is a country where lazy people suddenly think about how to become rich overnight, and all they think about is politics.
Okay.
They just get into politics by every means possible. They get in. And once they get in, they are not getting in for the good of the Nigerian people. They just get in and they go in and amass wealth. That is exactly what they do, from councillor to the presidency. The level of the greed in government has no limits. A man who has 4 cars before he went into government wants to have 20, 30 cars. Okay, so the primitive accumulation amongst government officials is legendary, and we must make it a subject of thesis interrogation in our universities. Why is the average Nigerian politician so inherently greedy and has no iota of any public good in him? And each time he or she gets into office, the whole thing that is ingrained in his or her mind is how to amass public funds. And politics, or those who are in government, they have access to public funds, because
Yes,
what
they
the
do.
Nigerian government is doing, I make bold to say as a concerned Nigerian, because the policies of the government affects me, is that Nigerian government is not governing, they are supervising stealing. Supervised stealing, that's what's going on in government. So once you are able to get into government by ways of either elective or appointment into office, it gives you access to public funds, because you are supposed to work for the public.
Yes.
So they get in, and the moment they get in, that access is used to self-aggrandize, not to bring about or to make good
For
the
the people.
No, nothing about that. So what this current minister did, circling back to your question, is that a concerned Nigerian like you and I has gone to court to say, give us details of this project.
Yes.
The project is very controversial. This is a project that due process was not followed before it was awarded. You are a journalist. You know these things
And there are a lot of distractions.
Yes, you know these things are in public domain. Due process was not followed. Nobody bidded for it. It was awarded by fiat. The president just awarded it to his friend. That's exactly what happened. And then a concerned Nigerian has gone to court to say that, look, we want to know the details of this project.
Yes.
What is the ideal thing to do? Because it is not his private estate that he's supervising. He should have no qualms with releasing the information.
Details,
But
yes.
what did he do? When he ignored the gentleman went to court. Court granted an order that release it. And now he's engaged 6 senior advocates. By the report I read in the media, he's engaged these 6 senior advocates. They will go before the court and give the court 1,001 reason why
He shouldn't release
he
it.
should not release it. So you can see why oftentimes the public says that lawyers are the problems of society.
That's true. So we're talking about the violation of court order and how the interaction in the judiciary has been. So we've understood that people work from principles, and then we have people who are in the top class in the society who think they are above the law and would be ready to stand by whatever they deem fit, just to prove a point to an extent and to show you that they are capable of having their way. So this brings us to the end of this segment on this program. But then we are going to be having a part 2 where we'll be hearing more about the violation of the court of law and what was contained in the statement released by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Kekere Ekun. Thank you for joining us today on The Critical Minds. I am Onyinye Eslofo. For more interesting episodes, follow us across all our social media platforms, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until I see you again, keep watching The Critical Minds on Union Television.